One. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to preface by saying that today we have our college success team here with us. You're watching this video because you've been matched as a new volunteer with En route and you are in the college success track. And because of that, I have the pleasure to introduce you to two of my awesome colleagues from En route. We have Bralyn, who is a director of college success, and Ellie, who is the college success associate. And so with that said, I want to pass it to Bralyn to introduce himself, and he can tell you a little bit of what he does here at En route and some of his story. So take it away.
Awesome. As Vanya stated, Bralyn Bethia, Director of College Success and Alumni Engagement, coming up on a year. So yes, the fall makes a year. Part of my job is to literally plan out big picture and make sure that the processes as well as I would say like the month to month is in place, as well as providing a framework for the work that Ellie as well as Regina do, has adequate support as well as details, and then they fill everything in between. Why I chose En route? I actually love it, and I'm sure everybody across the board can say the same. When you think about an organization that is rooted in the success of its students, therefore the org is now successful because the students define what success is. It just makes your day-to-day work that much easier. And I'm happy and proud to be a part of En route, so I can be along the journey of our students as well as to support those that I provide leadership to.
Thank you, Bralyn. Ellie.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. My name is Ellie Via Wilson, and I'm the College Success Associate. No, we did not coordinate our outfits today. I want to throw that out there. Sometimes we do it. We'll show up at a workshop and I'm like, Bralyn, we're wearing like the same color. So that happens sometimes in College Success. You might see us matching in some form. But in terms of my responsibilities, I'm basically supporting, I'm kind of Bralyn's right-hand woman, I guess you could call it. But work with our students in the College Success Program, really advising them to ensure that they're being supported in terms of their college experience, work experience, or whatever they're doing post-high school. So whether that's figuring out what school they want to transfer to, or how to apply for financial aid, or maybe they're looking for an apartment and they don't know how that process works. So really supporting them with whatever they need help with, and making sure that they have all the information they need to make the best informed decision for themselves. Another thing I help with is workshops. So we host workshop programs in College Success. So thinking through what types of programs we want to do, what we do during the actual program. So activities, speakers that we can bring in, and ways to really engage with our students and our mentors during our programs that we do. So that's really fun, just to kind of think through that, and also think through what are some things that maybe I didn't know when I was in college or around the same age that maybe our students or our participants in the program could really use, or the information or knowledge that can help them be successful in whatever they're doing. So those are some things I do. I also help create our College Success resource website, which you'll see. It's a great resource where you can find lots of different information to help your mentee. Send out a lot of emails and texts to students to kind of keep them in the loop of what's going on. And then, yeah, just supporting Bralyn and just the efforts of college success in general.
And Ellie, what brought you to En route?
Great question. So my professional background has been mostly working, I worked at a high school as a guidance and college counselor for a while, and then in higher education admissions for many years. And while I really liked that, I really missed the opportunity to get to know students and really support them in their journey without having to sell a particular college or university, but really just focusing on what the student needed and how I could best support them so they could make the best decisions for themselves. So I really love the idea of working with immigrant students. Most of my career, I've worked with immigrant students and first gen students. So I was really attracted to Enroute's mission of empowering immigrant students and helping them with opportunities and making sure that that they have the opportunities to do whatever is important to them and exciting to them. So that's something that really brought me to Enroute, and also having the opportunity to just really cultivate good relationships with students and not be in more of a sales kind of focused position.
Well, thank you so much both for giving that background and telling us what you do. So I'm going to be starting to share my screen so I can ask a couple of questions about, what the college success training will be about. But, I want to start us off by maybe Bralyn, tell us a little bit more about the college success vision.
Absolutely. When we're thinking of college success, we often get into the mind frame of literally the name college, but that's not all that we do when it comes to college success. We provide framework as well as a curriculum that bolsters opportunities not only for college, but for those who want to go into a trade. And recently, those who want to create a small business, we will help with that. Those who potentially would like to get involved in a going into the armed services, although we don't push for that, that is an option for some of our students. And we also have the opportunity for those who would like to just simply work, want to get more experience in the work field, whether it's an internship, 9 to 5, part-time, so on and so forth. So when we talk about the college success vision, we are focusing on all aspects of success for our students and making sure that within that framework, we're providing them the most opportunities for them to grow from a holistic standpoint, but also providing a framework of DBIE so that they have an understanding of how they belong, how they can fit into different spaces, but also to be their authentic selves, no matter what they do within the world that they decide to be in. So the vision for college success is to provide that framework so that all of our students can be successful in any avenue that they decide to go into.
Thanks so much, Bralyn. And for folks who don't know what DBI is diversity, belonging, equity, and inclusion. And we practice that model here at Enroute, and we'll be talking a little bit more about how this all applies to our model later on. So a little bit of a roadmap. We'll do a welcome, we'll do the program overview and the expectations, and then we'll talk a little bit more of how Ellie and Bralyn talk about mentoring at college success, which is a little bit different of how high school model is. So I'm so excited for the both of you to tell me a little bit more about what your vision will be for this upcoming year. So I'll pass the mic to the both of you to start telling us a little bit more about this framework, and I'll leave it up to the two of you to start chatting and telling us more.
Awesome. Ellie, you want to start with students and then I can take on strong leadership and commitment?
Awesome. Yeah. So talking a little bit about what our college success cohort looks like. Our students are mostly currently enrolled in college and community college. I would say that for the majority of our students that are on that college track or in college, I would say University of Massachusetts Boston, CMAS Boston, and Bunker Hill Community College tend to be the two schools where we see the most of our students attending. Obviously, we do have students that attend other colleges and universities in Massachusetts as well as outside of the state, but those two schools overwhelmingly tend to have the most of our students that are going to college. We also have students that are attending alternative post-secondary programs or receiving vocational training. For example, I've worked with a couple students who are doing like coding boot camps or coding programs, which is a little bit different from that traditional college or community college track. But that is something that is becoming increasingly more attractive or exciting to our students in college success. And then we also have students that are entered the workforce right after high school. They're working, providing for themselves, providing for their families. So helping those students navigate that process. even if it means applying for new jobs or navigating how to, deal with a tough boss or a tough coworker, things like that, we can also help students within our program achieve and work towards.
Absolutely. And when we talk about strong leadership across the board, we also have to uphold our end of the bargain, which we try very hard to do through our day-to-day endeavors, as well as through our opportunities that we go through to make us more sound professionals as well as individuals. But what we're looking for is dependable and communicative. And when we talk about dependable, this may be the most consistent thing that a lot of our students have in their day-to-day lives. So you may be that go-to person that they'll reach out to because they need that. That dependability means a lot to our students. Although they may be a bit hesitant at the beginning, they will come around, and when they come around, they will come around often. And that's literally what they'll do. And you won't stop hearing from our students, but that's a great thing because that trust has been built and communicative. Our students tend to lean more towards texting. So if texting is not your thing, that may be something that you'll have to get in the framework of doing. Students are not too prone to picking up the phone unless that is pre-established that, hey, I'm going to call at this time. But other than that, if you call, they'll probably end the phone call and text you like, hey, what's up? But communicative across the board. If you can over communicate, you'll be in a great space with your student. And we'll do our best as well when it comes to Ellie and I, when we're communicating things so that we're sharing out so that you're in the loop and you can make the best decision based upon what you have going on in your personal and professional life so that you can be there for the student. An ability to work on post-secondary prep and career planning. As I mentioned, students are going to come to you. When they come to you, they are asking questions that make sense to them. They may not know the full scope of what they need to ask. So this is where it comes back to you to over communicate and ask them additional questions. Is that all that you need? Or did you mean this? Have you thought about that? That way students can now form a more sound question. Even though they think they're asking you the right question, it may not be the full scope of what they need to get done because they may not quite comprehend from their standpoint of being a first gen, as well as the first person within the, sometimes for our students, when they come into America, a lot of these things in terms of acronyms and just navigating this space is totally new for our students. So you literally have to break down things step by step, especially for this demographic of students that we are working with. And I'll talk a little bit about commitment. Ellie, I'll go over the first point. With the weekly check-ins, again, this comes down to the text. Make sure that you're establishing that with the students so that they know what to expect. And as long as you're following through with that text, students will start to create a routine around that established timeline that you and your student have created based upon the agreed terms. And that's just literally a weekly check-in. Hey, how's it going? What are you working on? What do you need? And they'll share out as well what they have going on. And if there's anything that's pertinent within those check-ins, please feel free to bring it to us. And we'll do what we can so that we're not looping you all the way through, but definitely keeping you aware of how the process is going so that we can best serve. We don't want to put you in a situation where you feel like you're emotionally now tied to a situation that takes much more of your energy than we would want from a lot of our volunteers, given that you're giving us your time. We have to take on some of those things as well. So please feel free to loop us in if anything pertinent comes up.
Thank you so much, both of you. I do have a question that maybe some volunteers might have, especially those who are transitioning from the high school model to the college model. Like, what are some of the primary ways in which you'll see a shift in relationship for those who have been with their student now as college, from high school to college, and for those new mentors who might not know their student like what are some ways that they can start building trust in that process?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a shift that can sometimes happen is that I've seen with our students in the College Success Program is that, they are a little bit older and they're trying to establish, their independence. And, that's really important to a lot of them. So I know sometimes for mentors who've maybe worked with our high school population where the students might be a little bit more needy or more, wanting more of that constant attention, it might be a little bit different for college success because sometimes you might check in with a college success students and they're like, I'm good, I got it. Like, I don't need any help or there's nothing going on, or I'll let you know if something's happening because our students are they're trying to like find their footing and also gain that sense of independence. So I think in that sense, it can be a little bit different sometimes, especially for a mentor that might be coming from working with our high school program or younger students coming into the College Success Program. So that is something that I've noticed, and I've only been at En route for almost a year in October, but that is something I've noticed from interacting with our mentors on the high school side and then interacting with our mentors on the College Success side.
Definitely. And a shift that I would say that I've seen is that because of them being so self-sufficient or them wanting to show and prove, because they have so many people depending on them to make whatever they have going on, make it come to fruition. They want to be successful in whatever they have going on. Therefore, there's a lot of additional pressure so that when they get into situations, they may not know to say, hey, can you take some of these additional things off of my plate? And that's something that we've been working with students on so that they can be proactive, but in the same breath have agency over what they're doing. So we use this term often in College Success is that come to us when you smell smoke. Don't come to us when something is on fire. It is so much harder for us to solve a problem once the house is completely on fire compared to you now smelling smoke and we're able to prevent something further from happening. We use that analogy a lot because students will come to us at the very end of the semester and say, hey, I need help now for my finals, when they've struggled all semester, even without telling us, after asking, hey, do you need something? What's going on here? No, I'm okay. Things are good. Things are good. So we'll run into that often.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for explaining that a little bit further. So I guess this is like some of the things that we see constantly. It's like, what is the expectation from volunteers? And definitely when we talk about it throughout the volunteer onboarding process, there's definitely expectations about showing up, checking in, but I would love to hear from the both of you, like what would make like the best volunteer experience for any mentor who's stepping into this role. And I would love for you all to tell us a little bit more of what that's like as well.
Absolutely. I'll take the top line and you can give a little more on the bottom three, Ellie. Does that work for you? Good. All right. So some things that we're looking for is definitely patience. The students that we're working with, I would like to say that the information that they're being given, they're trying to process that. They're trying to process it with the tools that they already have, as well as the ones that they're gaining at that moment. So be patient with the students when they're trying to articulate what's going on without you trying to, finish their sentence, because that may not be what they mean, but they're trying to formulate it the best way they know how when they're thinking of like, hey, I'm going through this. You may be like, oh, I have the right tools to help you with that. But that may not be exactly what it is. So now you're solving a problem that wasn't necessarily the issue. So just be patient with them. Ask them a lot of questions, because one of those questions that you ask will stick. They'll say, yes, that's the one right there. This is what I need help with. So having patience is critical. Understanding that there are several layers of the difficulties that our students are going through being first gen. Just think about it when you were in school. you may have had different impediments, different things that stood in your way before you were able to get started, but you were able to work through those. But now think about our students. They may now have 10 times more obstacles than what you had when going to school. And that's just for them to get to the starting line. So think about those complexities and the things that they're going through mentally and emotionally, and kind of put yourself in their shoes so that you can understand, like, hey, I need to be delicate with this, but also intentional and consistency. I mentioned this before, but you may be the only consistent factor in their life. And that's not me being, I don't know how to put it, but literally, you may be the only consistent thing in their lives. So we're depending on that relationship to be the very best that you and student can make it. And it's also literally that, what you make of it. Take your time, get to know the student, but once you get to know them, stay consistent, stay on top of those things that the student tells you that they like or that they dislike. That way you're building and cultivating that relationship that you want to have with this student that can literally last for years, even after you're done, just because it's that strong. Ellie, you want to talk about a few more pieces?
Yeah. So flexibility definitely goes with patience. As Bralyn mentioned, our students are constantly trying to process many different things, whether that's, being new to the US and navigating a new culture, a new system, a new school, a new job. So being able to kind of roll with the punches and try to meet students where they're at is really important as a mentor to students in the College Success program. So being able to be flexible, having an open mind, having some patience will get you a long way, especially when it comes to building that relationship, establishing that relationship, and then maintaining that relationship with your mentee. Being willing, so willingness, having an enthusiasm to get to know and work with these students. Our students are really good at picking up when someone's not being like genuine with them, or, someone is, or something doesn't feel right. So just being willing to learn about your mentee, their culture, what they have going on, their interests, that's extremely important. And when it comes to relationship building, some of the best mentee-mentor pairings I've seen, there's a level of willingness on both sides, right? It's a two-way street, just like, any relationship. But when you're showing a genuine interest and wanting to be a mentor and wanting to get to know that student, that is going to take you a long way when it comes to really having a strong relationship with your student. And then reflectiveness. This is important. Our students are coming from a lot of different backgrounds and life circumstances and situations. So being able to really take time to consider how your own experiences or upbringing or just understanding of the world might be similar or dissimilar from the student that you're working with is extremely important, especially because you might have an idea in your head that you understand exactly what a student is going through, or their perspective or their circumstance. But as Bralyn has mentioned, our students face a lot of different obstacles, a lot of which are systemic. So being able to take time to really reflect on where you're at and also where your student is at will help you in terms of building that relationship, but also create a genuine and open space where you can have dialogue, and you can be open to really learning about the student that you're working with. So I think being able to reflect and hold that space is extremely important when it comes to being a mentor.
Awesome. Thanks to the both of you for laying out the work. And I think it also shows a lot too when we talk about Enroute being a student-centered organization, like it is prioritizing the needs of the student, and that always comes in first as well. So always keeping in mind that the student has their own goals, have their own objectives, but there's also life that happens in between that, and like learning how to balance both of them is key, especially in college as well. Okay, so I guess it's a little bit more transition into like what are some times, what are some dates, like what is the system? Because clearly high school is once a week, but college success is a little different. So tell us, how does it work? Like what is the commitment in terms of um, times and how people meet?
Absolutely. Um, we say here 2 times a month. However, we've noticed some trends, and because of those trends, we're moving more towards a once per month program schedule. However, we have items in place in case we gain traction, students are super involved, that we can put that into place. But that will only happen with adequate feedback, but also proper notice for you all, because we don't want to spring anything on you a week in advance. We'll try to do so three weeks in advance if we can, if not more, saying, hey, this is what we have in the coming down the pipeline. But Ellie, do you mind giving a little more context as to why we wanted to move forward to just once per month?
Yeah, well, for our students, this is a very busy time of their life. Many are juggling, work, our school, our family. So they have a lot going on. And we have just found that sometime or in the past, having 2 workshops or programs in a month might be a little too much, just given what students have going on. And especially around busier times of the year. So when the semester is wrapping up, things can get quite busy. Towards the end of the spring semester, students, our attendance started to slip a little bit. So just really thinking about what is the best way to do this, where we can get the engagement from the students as well as volunteers without, overwhelming the students when they already have just so many other things going on that they're trying to juggle and balance. And sometimes for our students, it's deciding, do I go to the college success workshop tonight, or do I do my homework, or do I take another shift at work so I can make some extra money? So really trying to be intentional with our programming and make it fit better for our students and the busy lives that they're living.
Absolutely. And I'll note that the month of October will be the most busy month for our students. And that's only because October is FAFSA month. So we'll work to have several different workshops, but also to have an in-person party where we are assisting and finishing up the last pieces of those students who need that additional help, but also a time for us to be in community so that we can be face to face within our hybrid model, so that we're utilizing the space that we have, but also the opportunity so that we can get a bit more done, because it seems like that face to face interaction, of course, within COVID protocols, tends to work out best, and students respond a lot better that way. Students adjusting to, specifically just online, hasn't been the best, but they've responded the best way that they could.
Yeah, can you explain to us a little bit more of like when would it be virtual versus when would it be in person?
You want me to take this one on, Ellen?
Yeah, if you want to take it, I'll pop in if I need to.
For sure. So outside of the times, and we plan to have the majority of our workshops virtually. However, the events so far as, say, for instance, a paint and sip, of course, no alcohol, but a paint and sip event, a bowling event, these things will be in person. Fast for party, in person. Student check-in, in person. But when we have our guest speakers, because of the amount of space that we have within group, we may have, say, for instance, 15 students as well as some mentors lined up, which you all are totally welcome to get involved. And it's actually a great time for you to check in with students. There will be more participants than there is space, especially when we have guest speakers. So when we have guest speakers who are leading a program, we will definitely update you, and it'll be on a timeline document that we'll pass on to you that states this workshop is virtual, this is virtual, this is in person, virtual, virtual, so that you'll know ahead of time what to expect, who will be there, what time, and what the content will cover.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, go ahead, Ellie.
Yeah, I was going to say that I was going to add, but I think Bralyn did a great job. So yeah, we've been working on, what's coming for the upcoming school year and thinking through intentionally about what would be best virtually versus in person, keeping in mind, COVID and spacing and what we've seen, this school year in terms of our students and mentors attending workshops in person versus virtually. So keeping all of that in mind, but whenever there are shifts or, things that we're exploring in terms of programming, we really do try to keep that communication with our mentors as well as our students. But yes, I think as Bralyn has mentioned, we're focusing more on having more of the fun community building type of workshops in person and more of the, I don't want to say business focus because that's not a fun word, but more of the programs like budgeting and all those important things, keeping our guest speakers, creating a space where we can have as many of our students and volunteers that want to participate and be involved in the workshop be able to do so. So those things will happen probably a little more virtually.
Great. Well, thank you so much. So I guess this is the $1 million question, and I think why people sign up to become a mentor. What makes a successful mentorship? What makes a successful pair? I think it'd be awesome now that both of you have been exposed to what works especially for en route students. What are some best practices and examples that maybe you can give us?
Totally, Vanya. Thank you. Thinking of asking questions. When we think about best practices, we want folks to know that it's okay to ask questions, AKA be nosy, ask those questions. Students want to share information with you. They just may not know what to share. So when you ask them questions, that opens up the conversation. It allows it to now be a two-way street, as Ellie was explaining earlier, but it's important to ask those questions. As I mentioned, students have a lot of pressure on them. So when you ask them more questions, this just allows them to be a bit more now comfortable. Because if you just lead with closed-ended questions, they may just give you those answers. Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. What do you think? That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for it to be open and allowing you to feel like, hey, I'm gaining ground. I'm getting something from this. Student is learning about me as well. And those are some of the most compatible relationships that we have with mentors and students, is those who want to feed into their mentor as much as the mentor wants to feed into the student. And an example of that is sometimes students withhold information. And this is not because they feel like it's the best thing to do, but they fear that they do not belong in many spaces. Because if I tell my mentor this early, they're gonna think that, does this person really need to be in college? They're not ready. So they'll really psych themselves out, which all goes into that imposter syndrome. And that can weigh really heavy on our students, because as we mentioned, that they're already dealing with being in a new country, learning a new language, learning different cultural norms. And not to mention navigating a new academic space where everything is so much faster. So it's like a whirlwind of events that are happening literally all at once, plus being introduced to a new person. It's a lot for our students to take on. So they may withhold some information, but that just feeds back into the point of asking those questions, and it'll tie those things both together.
Yeah, and I would add being honest and trying to communicate candidly. I think when it comes to really building and establishing that key relationship, what I've seen from some of the best pairings for a mentor-mentee relationship is when both well, when first the mentor is willing to open up and be a little bit vulnerable, which I know can be challenging. And obviously we don't want you to make anything up, but sometimes it can be helpful to, you know, be a little bit vulnerable with your students. So for example, I once had a student that I was a mentor for long ago, and she was struggling with a particular professor, and I opened it up to her that I had a experience in college where I was also struggling with a professor, and how I went about kind of navigating that situation and the steps that I took to figure out how to make the relationship or the situation better. So being able to be a little bit vulnerable, being willing to open up and put yourself out there a little bit, I think is one way that can create a space in which the mentee, the student, feels like, okay, like if this person's being vulnerable and like willing to be honest and open up with me, that creates now a safe space for me as the student to also do the same. So it is a very, you know, two-way relationship. You know, you got to give a little to like get a little back. And I think that's something that I've seen in terms of really good pairings that's happening with both the mentor and the mentee.
Can you also talk a little bit more maybe about confidentiality and like what does that mean, especially for some of our students who might be having, you know, financial hardships or being undocumented plus as they're going through this journey. And I know we're going to touch about, there's another slide specifically about resources, but maybe handling like that relationship part of that question.
Absolutely. I know oftentimes as mentors, because you're the liaison, you're the middle person between leadership as well as the student, and you take on a lot of responsibility when it comes to assisting a student, especially once you've built that relationship. But we want you all to know, like, you don't have to tackle some of those tougher situations by yourself. I know innately, being an adult and wanting to be a problem solver, that you often say, hey, I don't want to bother Bralyn or Ellie with this. I have the resources, or I have the wherewithal to go ahead and take care of this because I have some background. But in all actuality, we would prefer if you bring it to us. That way that we can, you know, go through our resources as well as to operate from our scope of influence with what we have to best assist not only you, but the student in that process, because many of those things weigh heavy, not just on the student, but on you as well. And we want to make sure that we're keeping you fresh and at the same time not too involved that it weighs you down. So when you experience those things where it comes to, say, for instance, work visas or their status within the United States, or even hardships that they're experiencing at home, for example, please feel free to bring those to us so that we can take care of that. But at the same time, keep you in the loop based upon the information that we can provide. Sometimes when we're going through, say for instance, and we'll talk about the Rian Center, if we're working with our pro bono lawyer and they share out with us, only share certain information that the student would want to share out, then that's all that we can loop you in. But because the relationship you built with student, they may share with you a little bit more. So again, in those situations, please feel free to bring it to us first so that we can best help you when it comes to those difficult situations that you may try to navigate.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in quickly. I think when it comes to a student's immigration status and whether they're undocumented or documented, that can be a very tricky topic to navigate, and also sometimes really uncomfortable for our students. I've worked with students who, you know, have a little bit of fear sharing what their status is. So I think it's really important not to like press or ask students what their status is, but really, you know, if the student feels comfortable sharing that with you, they will. But if not, it's just something that is important to be respectful and mindful of, because students might be feeling all kinds of ways about their status, their immigration status, and it's important that we are respectful of those feelings. And if the student does decide to share that with you, that means that there's a level of trust and relationship built there, and they feel comfortable sharing that with you. Then just know that that's the student, opening up and kind of showing you a part of themselves that maybe is not so easy to talk about or easy to navigate. I will say, when it comes to confidentiality, many of our students are in college, and colleges have FERPA laws in terms of confidentiality. So sometimes there are situations that students bring to our attention that involves a college or university in which we might need to help the student. And because of FERPA, colleges won't talk to individuals like myself or Bralyn unless the student gives the college permission to speak to us. So that is something that we are definitely aware of, because it has to do with confidentiality, and we have to respect that process and the laws in place to respect our students. So if there's anything related to that, if a student discloses a situation involving a college or somewhere that might have some type of FERPA law or confidentiality law that they're telling you about and you're not sure how to navigate it, just let us know so we can have the conversation with the student and kind of help them also understand the process of confidentiality and kind of what institutions of higher education have in place for that. And I always ask students too, if I'm going to be calling with a student, say, for example, a financial aid office or a registrar's office, what specifically about the student's circumstances, especially when it has to do with status, do they feel comfortable me speaking about or acknowledging on the phone? So it's really about that communication, that open communication, and honesty as well.
Thank you both. That was very, very insightful. So I guess as we are moving into kind of like the skills and the tools, we do offer a lot of resources. And one of them is how to handle communication. I'll let you both, anyone who wants to jump in first, to tell us a little bit more of like what accountability looks like. I feel like that is a little bit also part of the conversation here. It's like not only communicating, but also holding each other accountable as well.
Yeah, communication is big. It's something that our students, I think, are still learning how to navigate in most respects. As Bralyn mentioned, text seems to work wonders with our students. A lot of times they're more quickly to respond to a text message or even answer to a text message than they are to a phone call or email. So this is something that we have been working a lot with students in a college success program on, and we will continue to work with them on in this upcoming year, because we also want to set our students up for success when it comes to communication, not only professionally, but in college as well. And not professors probably aren't going to be texting you information, or your boss might not be texting you information. So also trying to get our students accustomed and more comfortable to different modes of communication, such as email, so that they can successfully navigate spaces that use that type of communication as a form. But we do send reminders to our students for our workshops. We usually do those through text. We've just found that that's the best way to remind them and get them in the loop about things. So reminders for our workshops, reminders for events, and really ask that they let us know if they can't attend something. So that's something that you can definitely do with your mentee. Say a workshop is coming up. If you're not able to attend the workshop, just let your mentee know, or vice versa. So you can keep that communication open, but also it's a great opportunity and also a conversation starter as a check-in as well. And then, you can hold your student accountable. You can check in with them, shoot them a text, see if they're planning to attend a workshop or a certain event. And just keeping, I would say, in terms of communication, the best thing I have seen is just when those lines of communication are open and flowing.
Thank you, Ellie. And I found that the accountability piece happens when there is open communication. The more you communicate, the more you can check in about different pieces that you need the student to uphold, as well as vice versa. If you say, hey, I'm going to reach out to this specific person, or I'm going to call this specific program, they're going to ask you, like, hey, what information did you get? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? So if you have active communication in place, this allows for accountability
Yeah.
to not be
Yeah.
somewhat confusing when it comes to what is expected of each other. It only becomes difficult when you only bring up the accountability piece from time to time. If you're practicing and I consider it an art, the art of being accountable for what you can control, as well as the resources that you can provide, then the student it's kind of like a unwritten document or contract that you all are going through, where the student feels like, hey, this person has been putting forth this effort. That's the least I can do in return, is to provide that information back.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. And I appreciate you both for saying all of that, because sometimes it feels like one or the other is holding that relationship, but it should be the two of them communicating and connecting about what the expectations are as well. Okay, so I think we're getting to the resources piece, and we'd love for you all to explain to us, why are these resources important, and like, what does it mean for each of our students when they receive these resources as well?
You want me to start, Bralyn?
Go for it, Ellie.
All right. So there are a number of different organizations and resources that we work with in our work to support students, but that we'd also like you all to be aware of our resources or support services that we can offer our students. So the first is the Rianne Center, which Bralyn just mentioned. They provide pro bono immigration support, such as advising, case support, and form assistance. This is really helpful because many of our students are in the mix of their immigration status. So sometimes students are seeking a status, sometimes students are reapplying for certain statuses or changing statuses, and lawyers are, quite frankly, very expensive, especially immigration attorneys. So a lot of our students don't realize that we offer, or we have connections to pro bono immigration support. So being aware, especially if your student is maybe talking to you about their immigration status, or maybe they mentioned that they're going through an immigration process, just know that we do have pro bono support for them is really important. One by One Project, this is an amazing organization that we've done a lot of work with and has been extremely supportive of and reach students. They offer immediate financial support for various things for our students, such as home essentials, medical bills, transportation, textbooks, and etc. We've used the One by One Project multiple times this school year to help with various financial costs and things, bills that students have accrued that are emergencies. They just need support with. They don't have the funding, they don't have the resources, and they don't know where to turn to next. So this is something where Bralyn and I will submit a request, a proposal to One by One Project for a particular need of a student. And the One by One Project has been awesome in terms of what they've been able to help us with. They've bought new computer devices for students. They've helped with important bills. We had a couple students who had, small tuition bills that were, looming over their heads, that have created a hold on their account, that the One by One Project has been able to help us with. So they've become a really amazing partner that we are continuing to build that relationship with, but we have used quite often this school year.
Absolutely. And One by One Project, I'll just add that we had about, I would say, between 12 to 15 situations with our students that needed additional assistance. And for the 2022 school year, they helped us out with roughly about $5,000 that went directly to students and their situations that they were working to handle. And that was huge for us. given that, we could trust that if we put forth something that our student is experiencing, they literally take care of it because we've built that relationship with them. And they reach out to us as well for different stories of success, and knowing that the support that they provided has helped to make way for a successful or a positive outcome on the other end. And it's per scholas. I always get that one confused, Vanya. So please forgive me if I'm butchering it, but per scholas, post-secondary high school training, a lot of our students will not want to go into, per se, quote unquote, the college realm when it comes to academics, but they will take classes as they are working to attend or working to get a trade, whether it's within IT support, software engineering, which we've been working with a few companies that provide that, and starting out, or they want to go through plumbing, or they want to go through HVAC, or they want to be electricians, things of that nature in terms of their trade. But Per Scholas has been super helpful in helping us when it comes to the post high school skills and training. Tutoring, amazing. So if some of you all have expertise in specific areas related to academics, we would love to have you be a tutor. And we say this because students will let us know, hey, does this mentor that I'll be working with, do they have expertise in coding? Do they have expertise in algebra? Do they have expertise in, science? So on and so forth. Many times the tutoring pieces come in handy, and our students are so thankful to know that they can find the support all in one when it comes to the volunteers that we're working with. And a lot of times they truly make the difference between a student being successful in their academics as they're going through school because of that tutoring and or that volunteer mentor experience that they're getting from you all as you're coming in. So definitely let us know if that's something that you are interested in doing.
Cool. And I think this is almost the end. We'll have a little bit of like a closing, but this is your contact info, right, team? So please tell us how we can best reach you.
Absolutely. You can reach me via email, which is listed there, bethea@enrouteeducation.org. And my number's listed there. I have that via cell phone, and I also have it connected to my laptop. So I'm literally connected everywhere I go. 617-209-9285. Even though Vanya tells me to separate those two things, but I am here to assist as much as I can. I typically respond a bit faster via phone, just because I can send you a quick text rather than hopping on a phone conversation. But if it needs to be that phone conversation, I can certainly assist you that way.
Awesome. And in terms of my contact information, happy to connect via email or via phone. I do not have my Google Voice connected to my phone. I'm not sure if I should, but maybe I should. I don't know. Bralyn's now shaking his head no, so I don't know.
Too tricky, Ellie. Too tricky.
Yeah, but I'm happy to answer phone calls. As soon as I turn on my computer for the day, I make sure my Google Voice is up and running. So feel free to give me a call. If you're not a phone person, also totally fine. Feel free to email me. I do have my email on my phone. So feel free to shoot me an email. Happy to find the best method to connect with you based on what works best for you and your schedule and your life.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. This was super useful and informative, and I hope everybody who's watching this took away some of the concepts, maybe some ideas on how to start communicating with their mentee. I know that in the first email that you'll receive, you'll have information of the student, their email address, and what school do they go to. So I just want to say thank you so much for the team because I know both of you put so much care and time in helping mentors and students connect. And I know you spend so much time checking in with student and what student success means for college success. So this is going to be a great year. I'm just really looking forward for everybody connecting, doing things more hybrid, and hopefully we'll be able to see each other more often with this monthly meetings and check-ins in person and virtually.
Yes, thank you so much, Vanya, and thank you to everyone watching this. Looking forward to working with all of you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this upcoming school year, getting to know you all, as well as providing any expertise or tools to help you have a great experience within Root.
Thank you so much, both. I will see you all soon.